the best way
Mhm.
that I can explain this is with a gaming analogy, because I have
Mhm.
teenagers and they love gaming. So
I love it.
if you go back to when we used to play Mario Brothers, you remember Mario
Mm.
Brothers? Mario
Sure,
Brothers
yeah.
had a prescribed path where
Mhm.
if you did not follow the path, at some point Mario would die. Like if you stayed
Yes.
behind and the camera kept moving, the character would die. You remember that?
Yes, yes.
And that's the way that a lot of churches, even today, approach helping people connect. There is a
Mhm.
prescribed path for you, and we're going to tell you what you need
Mhm.
to do and what you
Mhm.
have to do. Then Zelda came into the scene, and Zelda is like, "Hey, choose your own adventure. You can start
Right.
your adventure anywhere you want." And so I feel like Liquid, we've shifted in that we used to be Mario Brothers, like, "Hey, here's a prescribed path for you. Here's all
Mhm.
the things that you have to do to connect." Whereas now we've shifted over the past 2 years into like, "Hey, we have a lot of things that we can offer you." And
Mm.
there are many different things depending on your season of life, on your felt needs, on
Hmm.
what you're looking for, on what you're interested in, on what makes your heart beat.
Growth pressure, staffing questions, facility decisions, and the emotional weight of leading teams. That's the world executive pastors are navigating right now. Today on the unSeminary podcast, we're sitting down with an executive pastor from a prevailing church to unpack what leaders like you shared in the National Executive Pastor Survey, so you can lead forward with clarity.
Hey friends, welcome to the unSeminary podcast. We've got a special episode on today where we're diving into some of the results from the National Executive Pastor Survey. And today we're super excited to have Kayra Montañez with us from Liquid Church in New Jersey. And today we're talking all about engagement. One of the things that jumped out, well, one of the top tier results, kind of concerns that came out, 10% of executive pastors in the open questions expressed fear around discipleship depth and volunteer sustainability. At the same time, nearly 12% said they lacked really visibility into participation and involvement data. Another 6% pointed specifically to volunteer and team metrics really being an unmet need, not knowing where they are. So what does all that mean? Roughly 1 in 5 executive pastors are entering 2026 this year, wondering really how engaged their churches are. And Kayra's going to solve all that for us. So Kayra, welcome to the show. Tell us about Liquid. Tell us a little bit about the
Sure.
church.
Well, I appreciate the vote of confidence, but I'm not sure about that. But Rich, it's always so great to be with you and to be a guest on your podcast. Thank you so much for having me. So, yes, we are in New Jersey. So our church is called Liquid. I get the incredible privilege of serving there as one of 2 executive pastors. And we are a multi-site church. We have 6 campuses. If you know anything about New Jersey, one of them is the furthest one is in Princeton, New Jersey. A lot of people know Princeton. And then probably the closest one that we have up north is closest to New York City, about 30 minutes from the city. So that kind of gives you the breadth and width of how we're trying to saturate the state of New Jersey with the gospel of Jesus Christ. That is our mission.
So good. And Kayra, I really appreciate you jumping in on today's conversation, particularly in this area, because I think, man, you're going to have so much to offer. You know, so many of our churches, we feel like the volunteer pipelines are thin. How are we getting, it's like people are underutilized. Maybe our follow-up process are like overly complex, and you've done a great job on this area. So let's just jump right in. Where do you see some of the biggest gaps today in churches, whether it's Liquid or other churches you interact, between, you know, getting people to attend church attendance and actual engagement? There's a gap there. What's driving that? What do you think drives that gap in our churches?
So I see a couple of things, but before I get to that, I just really wanted to start with something really encouraging, because it's not in my nature to be discouraging. So one of the things that I have noticed, in fact, I was actually spending some time with other pastors from other states in the U.S., and we were talking about like, hey, what is the Lord doing in the Big C church? What are you experiencing
So
in your
good.
context? And one of the things I think that was a theme for all of us is it feels like we don't have to work as hard to get people to come and be ready for what the Lord has for them. And that feels very exciting. And
Yep.
that's like a theme that I'm seeing repeated across the entire nation with all of my pastor friends from different locations. Having said that, there are still things that we have to do to get people from going to just attending to engaging, like you were saying. I think there's a couple of things that I saw. One of them is a big one, I would say, is like this idea of attending versus belonging, right? So, like, first,
Good.
people actually want to come, but they don't actually join people systems. So they come in person, they come online, but they don't actually join any kind of people system. So when I say people system, I'm thinking about groups or dream teams, a support group, a class. That's actually something that we started seeing a lot post pandemic, and I would say it's still here. So that's one gap that I see. The second gap that I see is digital versus relational. So obviously, we at Liquid have spent a lot of we've invested a lot in our digital ministry, and we really believe online and in person can both thrive at the same time, and we're seeing that. However, online services, while they can remove barriers, which is good, it also helps people stay anonymous unless there's a clear bridge for those people to actually join in-person community. And so churches that haven't figured out well how to do that will continue to see a gap between people who are attending, whether it's in person or online, but not actually engaging. There's also the people who just come for big events, right? We're approaching one of them even as we film this podcast. Next week is Christmas Eve. So we joke at Liquid, we have the CEOs, they come for Christmas, Easter, and other big events, but they don't actually have a weekly rhythm of attending and engaging. And then there's people who I would say are curious about serving and for the most part are open to helping, but are not really ready to make a serving commitment and actually take on a very consistent role. So I would say across the breadth and width of churches, that's probably something that would hit most people no matter where you are. Definitely, we
sure.
experience all of them at Liquid.
Yeah, well, there's a lot there, which I appreciate. And I appreciate the way you've kind of diagnosed. I think there's multiple ways to kind of diagnose or kind of pick apart, hey, here are different aspects here, different ways that we're seeing this kind of attendance versus engagement question. So maybe, pick apart those attending versus belonging. What has Liquid done? What are you doing to try to help move people from just attending, actually getting into those people systems? What are you learning on that front?
Yeah. We've had a major shift at Liquid, I would say, in the past 2 years. The best way that I can explain this is with a gaming analogy, because I have teenagers and they love gaming. So
I love it.
if you go back to when we used to play Mario Brothers, you remember Mario Brothers? Mario
Sure,
Brothers
yeah.
had a prescribed path where if you did not follow the path, at some point Mario would die. Like if you stayed
Yes.
behind and the camera kept moving, the character would die. You remember that?
Yes.
And that's the way that a lot of churches, even today, approach helping people connect. There is a prescribed path for you, and we're going to tell you what you need to do and what you have to do. Then Zelda came into the scene, and Zelda is like, hey, choose your own adventure. You can start your adventure anywhere you want. And so I feel like Liquid, we've shifted in that. We used to be Mario Brothers, like, hey, here's a prescribed path for you. Here's all the things that you have to do to connect. Whereas now we've shifted over the past 2 years into like, hey, we have a lot of things that we can offer you. And there are many different things depending on your season of life, on your felt needs, on what you're looking for, on what you're interested in, on what makes your heart beat. Tell us what you want to do, and we're going to help you. And so in order for us to understand what is it that people want, we created an event that we do every month called Connect and Conversation. And the whole idea and the way that we market it is if you're new to Liquid, or if you're not new, but you haven't connected yet, you haven't found your people, you haven't found something that you want to be a part of, come to this event. We feed you, we get to know you, and then we follow up personally with you. It's very high level concierge kind of a follow-up system where after we connect with you, we ask you, hey, what are you actually interested in? What are you looking for? Because your needs as an empty nester who's been married for over 25 years, you're parenting adult children who are already married, are very different than mine, who have I have two teenagers. One of them is about to go to college, right? And so that has actually produced incredible fruit from getting people who are attending
Yep.
Now I've actually offered them something they're interested in, which is making connections with people. And then from there, we follow up to offer, what do you need? And
Oh,
everybody
that's so
has
cool.
different needs. Some people just want to join teams because they're just like, I just want to serve. Some people, they really just need a lot of care. And so maybe they need a support group, and we're going to offer that to you. Some people may need marriage mentoring. We're going to offer that to you. So it really depends. And what we've seen is people taking significant next steps once they come out of that event. And that has really changed the past. 'Cause in the past, we would only be marketing teams and groups, role in
Yes.
relationship, join a, get into a role and connect with a relationship. And well, that's still good. I'm not saying that's not good or not needed.
Right.
It's not the only thing that people are looking for.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'd love to dive just a little deeper on that, because I think there's a really key learning there for lots of us. This idea, and you didn't say it this way, but where my brain went to, I think we have for sure in the past done the thing where it's like we have these giant funnels that we're pushing everyone through. And the only question we're really asking is, where do you fit in our funnel? Like where, and we push, and literally, and this is no, kind of slam on other systems, but it's like, this is the, step 1, step 2, step 3, everyone do step 1 first, then you do step 2, then you do step 3. So the connecting conversation, that feels like highly like it's volunteer intensive. You got to get a lot of volunteers in there, because it sounds like you're having one-on-one conversations or something close to one-on-one. Unpack what that looks like, maybe as a guest. If I arrive at that, what do I actually experience when I show up there?
So you can register up until the time that we have the event. So we do math, magical math with the food and the preparation, so that we can just accept people who are going to come on the day of. Because we promote it obviously every week, and then the day of we actually promote it. We get most people to show up the day of the event.
Right.
So
Okay.
people will come, there's going to be a lunch, and then they're going to sit at a table with about 5 other people who have a facilitator at that table. And that facilitator is actually going to lead them through a series of relational icebreakers, because the event is designed for you to first connect. You want to meet other people who are just like you. Maybe they're new or they're not new, but they haven't connected yet with somebody. And so there's going to be a lot of relational icebreakers during the first part of the event. And then after that, we get into like, hey, what are you looking for? What are you hoping to get out of? What do you need? What are you interested in? We make notes. That facilitator takes really good notes based on what people are saying. And then the follow-up begins.
That's so cool. I love that. That's what a great learning. I think so many times we've seen that step, and for sure that echoes what I've seen in a number of churches. There's really a trend away from the class being the first step. It's like the stand that we used to do, that thing where it was like, okay, someone stands up at the front and they're going to talk for 50 minutes about why we're such a great church. And, that really has gone away. I would echo that we've seen that as a best practice for sure.
And we do
so let's talk.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say,
ahead.
we measure the activity of everyone who goes to Connect and Conversation and what they do.
Yeah. Tell me about that.
And so there's how we say it at Liquid is it's correlation, not causation. Like I can't prove that if you go to this event, your next steps are a direct result of this event, but we can correlate that because you came to the event, you actually took these next steps, if that makes sense. So we've seen tremendous engagement grow because of that.
And that's on Sundays. You do it on campus after the last service, that sort of thing?
Yes. Every month at every campus after the last service, we promote it up till the day of the event. And we do it rain or shine, whether it's 5 people or 10 or 50. Obviously, at our largest location, sometimes we have about 100 people show up every month to these events.
That's great. I love that. That's great. You're coming in hot, Kayra. Great learnings. With friends, we've got through the first question. So and we're, it's fantastic. So one of the things I'd love to hear a little bit about, when we look in the data, people's anxiety, there seems to be some anxiety around or concern around discipling people. We offer these discipleship pathways or engagement pathways, and it's like we do this stuff, but then people don't actually take advantage of it. It's like we offer small groups, but people don't do them, or we offer classes and people don't actually engage on them. What are you doing to try to move to ensure people are actually engaging with the various pathways that you're developing at Liquid to actually get them to use them?
This is a very interesting question in this particular time, because at Liquid, we're just about getting ready to, or just ready to blow up small groups, basically.
Oh, nice. Okay. I'd love to hear more. Let's hear
Yes,
more.
so I would say that small groups was the one metric that did not recover for our church post-pandemic. So even though our volunteer pipelines at times felt thin, we were able to have incredible momentum around that. We can talk more about that later. How did we do that? We recovered in attendance and giving, baptism, but we were not able to crack the code on small groups. We were at an all-time low. About 20% of our church was engaged in small groups. It's pretty low. And so we started surveying people. We're like, what is it that people actually want? From the small groups, like what is it that we're not offering that they're looking for? And it was shocking to us that the number one thing, I mean, it shouldn't be shocking because we are a church. The number one thing that people wanted was to understand the Bible. So for the first time ever, we have uncoupled relational connection from biblical literacy. In the past, our small groups, the thing that was in the driver's seat, I would say, was the relational connection. We wanted people to connect, to join a group so that they could make friends, do life together. We used to promote it that way, if you remember. Do life together. We're the people that you're doing life together. For the first time ever, we're actually putting biblical literacy in the front seat and relational connection on the passenger seat. So you will actually make connections, but that's not the goal of this process right now. The process is for you to actually understand and read and study the Word of God. In fact, our new tagline is to know the Word of God so that you can love the God of the Word.
Yeah, that's great.
Now,
and is that so? If you change the container that fits in, are you changing the
We changed the container. So right now we're offering people different levels of biblical literacy. The biggest vehicle that we just piloted this fall through the book of Revelations, if you can believe it. So we're like, why not start with the hardest book of the Bible?
Yes.
And what we did was we created a Bible study midweek on a Wednesday night where people would go in person and study the Word of God in tables with other people. Now, obviously, there's facilitators who have been trained and vetted. And once you join a table, that was kind of like the table that you were going to go on this journey with. But it's not a small group. It's a short term. It was 10 weeks. We went through the entire book of Revelations, 22 chapters. We would do homework. In order to get ready for this midweek study, we would come, we would have a conversation around what did you put in question 10? What did I write? This was hard. I don't understand. And then there was teaching. And we also piloted doing that same thing with our high school students so that parents could actually come with their kids on the same day, drop their high school kiddos in their own cohort, and then they would go to their own biblical midweek, Bible study. And that was to a great success. So we are trying to figure out what are the appropriate levels of biblical literacy that we can offer a congregation that is increasingly illiterate in in the Bible. And deep dive, make no mistake, is the highest level. So that's not for everyone. And we understand that. And so the parts that we're trying to figure out is what's the appropriate next level to that for somebody who's not willing to come in person 10 weeks and do homework and study, the actual Bible. But it was fascinating to just uncouple those two things for the first time. And I would say it's in the right in the right approach. You're still making friends. You're just not, that's just not being the driver.
Right. Yeah, I do wonder. So we for sure have seen that. I've seen this conversation. I don't claim to be a small groups expert. I never have. For 20, 30 years, it's always been a mystery to me. I'm it's hard. It's a hard system to run and to build. And but for sure, post-COVID, it is, I would say that's a universal concern, that it's whatever we used to do, I see this all over the place. Whatever we used to do to try to get people into groups, we don't do that anymore. We're doing something completely different. I happened to be at Liquid this fall. I think you were speaking at a conference when I was there, bummer.
I wasn't.
And I saw the deep dive. I think that's what it was called, deep dive. That night. And I remember thinking, I was like, whoa, this is incredible. I don't know how many people were there that night. There was a ton of people all lined up and ready to go. I'm like, that's That's cool. I love that. Well, let's pivot. You kind of flagged it there, the volunteer piece.
Yes.
I'd love to know what you're learning on this front, to rebuild volunteer culture. We had this kind of, I don't know when we'll stop saying post-COVID. I don't know whether we'll be like that generation that was like after the like war or like after the depression, where like for 40 years we're going to be talking about it. But it does still feel like we're post-COVID. I don't know when that is, but what have you done to kind of restart? What's going well on that front? Externally, Liquid feels like an incredibly volunteer, robust culture. Help us understand, what's that looking like? What are you learning these days?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, everything you said is still very much a factor. I mean, we are constantly having to work at this. This is never going to be a problem that I feel we're ever going to solve. It's really a tension that we're managing. And sometimes the tension feels better and sometimes it doesn't feel good. In fact, this year, I would say in March, we probably had like our biggest crisis in the broadcast campus, where our church growth so far outpaced the amount of people that we're serving, that we were finding ourselves having to close rooms for Liquid Family, not because we hit ratios, but because we didn't have enough volunteers. And that doesn't feel great, especially if you're new to your family, right?
Yes.
And so we were like, all right, we need to do something really aggressive. And the best way that I can explain it is we did like a try before you buy.
Okay.
Very low approach, low hanging fruit. We said, hey, we casted a vision, right? It's never about we need volunteers, but we actually told a really significant story of here's all the fruit that the Lord is bringing to this church, all the spiritual fruit that we're seeing. Like, people are getting saved, people are getting baptized, they're coming to get to know Jesus, they're studying the Bible. It was incredible. But we need people to use their spiritual gifts. And so we came up with a campaign called For the One, and everything was geared for that one person. Like, who are you going to go serve? Who's the one that you're going to go serve? And the try before you buy was, we're going to give you a hoodie. We designed a hoodie. It was had the tagline For the One. And the key is you only get it after you serve a couple of times.
Okay, that's cool.
Try before you buy. You're going to try it out. You're not going to go through the whole background pipeline covenant process, because we need people now and we need them quick. So you're trying before you're buying. But if you like it, and we're going to make sure that first serve experience is incredible for you, then we want you to buy it. And we're going to reward you by giving you swag that's limited, exclusive. Not everybody's going to get it. Rich, you would be surprised. Like, I'm still, to this day, I've been at Liquid. It'll be 13 years in April. And I am still shocked by how much the gamification of playing to people's particular interests, whether it's FOMO, they don't want to miss out, whether it's the idea of collecting exclusive apparel. There's something here for everyone that just draws people out. We had over 400 people sign up.
Wow. That's amazing.
It was incredible. And we were able to tell amazing stories of people who were coming and showing up and serving, whether it was our special needs kiddos or high school, whatever you want to call it. We had it. And I would say the appeal of a try before you buy. How can you shortchange without? So this is key. You don't want to reduce the quality, but you do want to shorten your pipeline so that you can get people quicker to try it. And then once they actually feel like, hey, I really enjoy this, now we're going to get you through the whole, rest of the process, right? But you can still serve while we do that. So that was a huge thing. And then obviously, like the free apparel swag, that always is a nice incentive to give to people.
It's true.
That was very successful. And that's what I would recommend is like, hey, can you try before you buy little events with like swag, and like you have people serve for a limited amount of time. Like, you don't give them the swag immediately. You make them work for it. They got to serve 3-4 times before you give it to them.
Yeah, we did a similar thing last summer. Our kids ministry team did a similar thing last summer, where we did the summer serve, which we hadn't done in actually a number of years. And they pulled that out and did summer serve. And it was the same thing. If you signed up, you got a t-shirt, a specific t-shirt for that. And then they basically were asking you to serve once in June, once in July, once in August, like once a month, just for the summertime. And if you served, I forget exactly what the ratio was, but it was, you got entered in a draw for however many times. And basically, so if you served all three, you got like 10 times the number of draw things to win. And it was all this stuff that you could win. And it was
Yes.
like really great gifts.
Yes.
And you would think that should not motivate people.
But it does.
But it does.
It does.
And it was, and they did it in a really fun, hey, this is going to be a fun thing to be a part of. Talk to me about because there's a friction thing there to learn around trying to reduce the friction, the kind of onboarding friction. I think over time that stuff can become, we actually are like we can become just too hard for our people.
Yeah.
What did you learn through that process in trying to find that balance of like, we want to make it easier to onboard people, but we still want to, is there any kind of lessons from that when you look back on that?
To me, the lesson really is, again, there's a tension between, you can't shortchange, especially when it comes to kids. I can't emphasize this enough. Like I oversee all of these ministries, and it would be not on my watch will this happen, right?
No.
So we have to be very sure that we're not shortchanging the safety procedures. At the same time, recognizing these things can take some time, right? Like we ask people to get a background check. They have to be interviewed. They have to sign a covenant. They have to have a reference. I mean, these things, this is a lengthy process. Yes. And I stand by it. We have to do that. At the same time, can we actually live in a world where we are marrying our need to have someone in the room while also still doing all of these things simultaneously, not actually waiting for all of this to happen so that then they can come? And that's kind of how we figured it out. Our liquid family pastor came up with a process where she's like, okay, we can shorten it this time. They're only going to do these 3 things, not 4, not 6. But while they're in the room trying it, we're going to continue to do the other remaining 4. It's great. Messy. It's not always the best thing to do. In an ideal world, you are not doing that. But when you're faced with crisis, then you need to come up with, resourceful ideas. And so what I would say about the volunteer pipeline is this. There are short-term problems that you have to solve while you're still working on this very long-term. Like this is a culture that you have to create. And in order for you to create a culture, you have to tell stories. You have to celebrate what you want to be repeated. You have to make people feel thanked, encouraged, appreciated, seen. Those are all long-term things that you have to be doing all the time. This is nonstop.
You can't take the gas off that pedal for sure. Pedal off that gas.
Your foot off the pedal. Yeah. But at the same time, there are things that are short-term that you really do have to also do. And sometimes that will require teaching from the stage where you're actually envisioning people about why this matters so much. And this is what we did in March with the 4 the 1. So I would say it's both, and it's not either or. And so if that's helpful, that's how I would approach it.
Yeah, that's super good. That's good. If there was a church if you were sitting across the table from an executive pastor, or maybe you're at a conference or someone drops in your office and they're feeling really stuck on this engagement issue. They feel low, like it's people maybe it's groups, it's teams, it's all of it. Like we're not moving people through any kind of pipeline. What would be some of those first steps or first recommendations, first things you'd have them look at, maybe like a diagnostic, or first couple things that you'd have them think about?
Well, I would say if there's a way for them to know of the people who are attending, and maybe they figure this out with New Here, how many of those people take one next step within the first month?
That's good.
That would be one diagnostic that I would first see if I can do with the data that I have and the data that they collect, and they actually figured that out. If they're able to do that, then the next diagnostic would be what % actually move into a people system, whether it's a group, a deep dive experience, a dream team within 60 to 90 days, right? Because if you do that, you're going to find the blockage. You're actually going to discover maybe our attendance is fine. We don't have an invest and invite problem, but maybe what we have a problem with is our conversion rate. And so then you can start to identify, what is it about our conversion that we need to fix? Is it that we have unclear on-ramps? Or is it that our processes are too high friction? It's too hard for people to get involved. If you actually find no, actually people are taking next steps, great, but they're not sticking to it, then you have a different problem. Then you can actually diagnose, maybe the first serve experience actually wasn't sticky enough. It wasn't welcoming. Maybe there were issues with scheduling. Maybe we didn't give clear information.
Hmm.
So you can kind of figure out what the problem is based on how you're measuring it and what you're
It's good.
discovering. That's how I would start if I didn't know what the problem was. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
That's so good. That makes total sense. And, it definitely aligns with one of my bugaboos that I'm constantly driving with executive pastors. When you look at the actual numbers, and I have not run into a church yet that this is not the case. Most churches actually have a front door problem. They don't have a back door problem. Their actual problem that we feel like, oh, like people aren't sticking and staying in groups. They're not staying and volunteering. But statistically, that's actually not true. When most of the time, if you look at, okay, all the people that end up in a group, what is the kind of churn rate on that? Whatever that number is, I've never seen a church where it's higher than the people we're missing on the front end with what you said is how many people are we moving from new here to taking the first step in the first month, because you lose a ton of people in that door right there. That is by a multiple of 10 or 20, like it's a lot more that we're missing out. And generally
Can
in
I just
most
dig
churches.
into that? Because I
Yeah.
just want to encourage people, like, figure out a way to target your new here audience. So at
Yes.
Liquid, for
Yes.
example, if you come for the first time, not only do we highly encourage you to tell us that you're here for the first time because we give you
Yes.
an awesome gift. Lots of churches do this. But then
Yep.
we survey people who came for the
Hmm.
first time. And
Yeah.
based on what they answer, they receive a custom follow-up process for the
Yeah.
first
That's great.
30 days.
Yeah.
We don't. So in that regard, like, it is worth to look at that because you're
Yes.
going to find out a lot of information and a lot of data about what people are choosing to do, where are they going, why they're not sticking to it, or why they're not even going in the first place.
Yeah.
Like, I'm shocked that I've been to churches sometimes to speak and they don't actually really do like a new here call out. Like, they don't.
Yeah, I was going to say that. You said, "Oh, churches do this," and I'd be like, "Kyra, I've
Maybe
been to
not.
way too many churches where they don't do any of that." And they're like, "Well, we're not really sure." And I'm like, "This is a solvable problem. We can fix
Yes.
this. There's like real
Yes.
things you can do here." Actually, I worked with a church last year, a fairly large church in 2024, where they were experiencing some of these issues. And I basically said the same thing I just said. I'm like, "You're losing people on the front end." And
Yeah.
they're like, "Well, we do a gift." And I'm like, "No, you don't." And I said, there's a few things to fix around that. In 2025, the year we just ended, we made a few changes. It's not about me. That was about them. They made a bunch of changes. They ended up receiving 5,000 more first-time guest contacts than they
Wow.
did in
Just
2024. Now,
by
they did
doing
not grow by 5,000 people, but it's
amazing.
just by focusing on that, right? It's just by like saying, hey, what are we going to do to ensure that step goes well with folks? So anyways, there's huge opportunity there in lots of churches. Kayra, you've been incredibly generous to give us your time at this time of year. As you're thinking, kind of last question, as we're thinking about 2026, what are some of those questions that are floating around in your head as you think about Liquid, as you think about the future? What are some things that you're wrestling with, that you're wondering about, that you're contemplating as we go into this year?
Oh my gosh, Rich, so many.
Yes.
This conversation, I really am interested to see what's going to happen with our discipleship model since we just blew it up,
Yep.
uncoupling all of that and changing the way that we even onboard leaders. Like, I'm really invested in seeing this through.
Yeah,
Um,
that's great.
I also, totally unrelated to this, but we just
Mhm.
launched, I think in the survey, one of the questions that was asked was, what's the best idea that you had in
Yeah,
2020?
yeah, right.
Something like that. And I
Yeah.
was like, well, I feel like one of our best ideas was to use AI to launch a Spanish service. And
Mm-hmm.
I am really invested in that and seeing, like,
Mm-hmm.
how do we continue to grow that service? How do we continue to grow that ministry? We're launching new ministries in 2025 or 2026. So that always
Mm-hmm.
feels exciting and daunting.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just, the work never ends. And it is an exciting and fascinating time to be in the church. I'll say that.
I would
It's
agree. I
always.
totally would agree. It's the best. I would think, literally, I think this is the best season that I've been involved in ministry for sure. For folks that don't know what you're doing with Spanish ministry, give us the 60-second, explain that again. Cause I think I keep pointing churches to you saying, have you heard what Liquid's doing? You go talk to them.
Yeah.
So
So
tell us
basically,
about that.
we have a Spanish service. We do have live hosting in Espanol. We have live worship in Espanol, but then we take our English message and we pass it through an AI service called Hey Gen, which
Mm-hmm.
actually uses the communicator's voice and
Mm-hmm.
matches the words to their lips, and they're just
Mm-hmm.
they preach it in Spanish, even if they're not
Mm-hmm.
bilingual. they will preach it in Spanish. And it's like you, Rich, are speaking in Spanish, your
Yes.
words match your voice.
Yes.
So people
It's
get to
amazing.
hear the gospel and the message in their language. So it's been fascinating to learn who we're reaching, who's coming, who likes that kind of a thing. You know, as a Spanish
Mhm.
speaker myself, I'm like, would I go to a service where the message wasn't actually authentic Spanish and it's an AI generated? I believe in the quality of our communication so much that I actually have to
Mhm.
say, yes, I would. Because
Mhm.
like
Wow.
this year, we took our entire church through the book of Revelation. Tim spent 25 weeks
Mhm.
teaching us the hardest
Mhm.
book of the Bible.
Mhm.
Fruit that endeavor produced is incredible. And so when I think about what we're doing, I'm like, I believe in that so much that I do think this is a thing that's actually good to do, even if people
Mhm.
would think like, why would they go to that and not like an authentic Spanish speaker?
Mhm. Yeah, interesting. And you've been a year, that's been basically almost a year you've been
A
doing that
year,
now.
a year.
And you're continuing to do it. So obviously something's working. There's some
We're
sort of version of
continuing to
like,
do
hey,
it.
we've
We're seeing the fruit. We're seeing
seen fruit
baptisms,
from it.
people giving
Yeah.
their life to Christ, getting baptized, showing up and joining teams, reaching families. We're reaching multi-generational families where the parents go to the Spanish service, the kids go to the English service because it's simultaneous, right? While the English is going on, the Spanish is going on. So
Mhm.
families get to decide. It's just really interesting to watch. Obviously, it's been challenging in the US to grow a Spanish service because of
Mhm.
everything that's been happening,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's just been
Immigration
really
stuff.
fascinating to see
Yeah.
like the dynamics of who we're reaching, who's sharing, like who's excited about it, and then using
Mhm.
technology to further the
Yeah.
gospel. It's always
Yeah, it's
exciting.
fantastic. I know I was goofing around with Hey Gen a little bit, and the part that actually this was almost a year ago when you guys started doing that. The one of the tests I ran that actually convinced me was so I was like taking videos of me, and I would send them to like a friend who speaks Spanish, and I sent to a friend who speaks a couple languages that I was doing. But then I did the reverse. There's a great church, Nouvelle Vie. It's a French speaking church, large church. It'd be very similar to Liquid, but they're French speaking. And so I took one of the lead pastors from that, and I took a clip of his message and translated it into English, and
Mm,
I was blown away. I
wow.
was like, "Oh my word!"
It is
like,
getting better and
uh,
better every day.
I was shocked. I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, that is yeah." Could I tell? Yeah, but this guy's an incredible communicator, and similar to you and Tim and the team at Liquid. I'm like, I could see that work anyway. So that's exciting. Kayra, it's so great to see you.
Thank
Thanks so
you,
much
Rich.
for spending time with us today. If people want to connect with you or with Liquid, where do we want to send them online?
Sure. So my name, Kayra, Kayra at liquidchurch.com. Happy to connect
Nice.
with anybody who have questions.
Thanks so much. Thanks for being here today.